Hey there everyone, I'm Nishan. Welcome to Tales and Texts.
And I'm Rekha.
And welcome to our new series, Scriptures Through Our Lens.
And in today's episode, which is
Episode 2,
we are speaking about
Coming into being, which is basically a story about the origin stories of the various characters in the Mahabharata universe.
And maybe we may also include a few things from the Ramayana as well.
Yeah, definitely. We didn't touch upon the Ramayana last
Yes.
time, so I think we'll do so this time.
Yes. And before we start, let us make this disclaimer.
That we are not scholars or academicians or historians.
Or anthropologists.
Right, and we are just people who are interested in the epics, and this is just
We are here to share our perspectives
right. And so
and let us journey together.
yeah. So while we are journeying, let's journey all the way back to the start, not the start of the Mahabharata, but to the even earlier to the start of the various characters in the Mahabharata universe, and like you said, in the Ramayana universe as well.
Yes. So, shall we begin?
Yep. And just one more thing, in this episode we are going to be discussing about fertility issues and various modes of getting pregnant. So we do want to say that we support all forms of parentage, and the more the love, the more the care, I think the better the world is for it.
Yes. And if these types of topics are very sensitive for you and you may not be very comfortable, feel free to watch our other videos and keep sharing the love and encourage us. Thank you. Coming into being.
Right. Now, our very first way of coming into being is through biological procreation, where a cis-het man and woman biologically procreate to have a child. Now, what examples from the Ramayana or the Mahabharata can you think of that we that showcases biological reproduction?
The one that I can remember is that of Shanta, Lord Ram's older sister.
Right, that's true. Can you tell our audience who Shanta is? And
Shanta was the daughter of Dasharatha and Kaushalya, the parents of Lord Ram and his brothers. And that is one example we can quote for the biological procreation.
Right, and I remember that Shanta was actually given in adoption to King Romapada.
That's right.
And that's why we don't really see her a lot in the Ramayana as well.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
and I think we can also say that, because now we're talking about the genesis of the Ramayana and itself, Dasharatha and Kaushalya, then we also have sage Parashara and Satyavati who gave birth to Vyasa,
Yes.
who is the progenitor, you could say, of the Kuru lineage as well.
That's true. That's true. And Shantanu and Ganga.
Right,
So that's
correct.
another
With
giving birth to Bhishma.
Bhishma, also called Devavrata, right?
Yes. So these are a few examples that we can think of.
Right.
And of course there are many other.
Yeah.
So for biological procreation between a man and a woman. So now that we are talking about parentage, the biological reproduction is not the only way one can become a parent.
Right.
So adoption is one of the noble ways in which one can experience parenthood.
Right. And also give a good life to another being in need.
Yes. And the examples that we can quote.
Right. First of all, I think we'll have to go to Shri Krishna, who was adopted by Yashoda and Nanda. And many of you are familiar with Krishna's stories because that's something that we learn about growing up. So Krishna's story is one of adoption, one of love from various forms of parentage.
Yes. And the other one I can think of is from the Mahabharata. And as all of us are aware, Karna as a baby was left afloat on the river and was found by the charioteer Adhiratha and his wife
Radha.
Radha. Okay. So the two of them brought up Karna as their own. And that's an
Another.
example for
Right.
adoption
Right.
and experiencing the joys of parenthood.
Right. In fact, Amma, you know what? How the Pandavas are called Kaunteyas because they're the sons of
Yes.
Kunti. Karna is
Karna is
called
called
Radheya because he's the son of Radha.
Yes.
And what a beautiful way to honor the adoptive mother, right?
And it's not just any mother, every mother. Because when you say Kaunteya, Radheya,
Right.
so that's something that you are honoring
Right.
the maternal form and the maternal energy.
Right, and one thing that's very interesting to note is that we look at it in the Ramayana, we look at, for example, Rama calls his family as the Raghu Vamsha, the sons of Raghu, the family
Yes.
of Raghu. But here in the Mahabharata, we see a lot of references to Kaunteya, Radheya, the mother, the matrilineal lineage takes
Yes.
much more
Precedence.
precedence, yes.
Yes. Yes. Now, coming into being, we are looking at another ancient Hindu practice called Niyoga.
And Niyoga is something that some of you may have heard of, and it's actually quite, even in ancient times, it was a bit of a controversial practice. I
It
believe.
was a controversial practice, and still, it was a practice that was adopted for various reasons.
Right. So first of all, talking of Niyoga is a practice that was sanctioned by the Yagnavalkya Smriti
As well.
yeah. And Niyoga was basically a solution to male infertility or or when the man, the husband, had died before he could impregnate his wife.
And the infertility could have been a medical issue, or it could have been through some curse that the man may have been the unfortunate recipient of.
Right.
So this was the practice.
And basically what happened in Niyoga was the woman was asked to reproduce with a man who was not the husband. Typically this man was a sage or a revered elder.
Yeah, and I'd like to draw your attention, Nisha.
Mm-hmm.
The rules were very strict.
Mm-hmm.
So when Niyoga was sanctioned by the elders of the family,
Mm-hmm.
so there were stipulations that the man and the woman cannot have any kind of emotional relationship, should not develop any kind of feelings for each other. This was just a business in terms of begetting children.
Right. And the child that the woman would ultimately beget would belong to her husband and to her husband's family.
And
So
the child was the legal heir.
Yes.
It could be for property, it could be for kingdom.
Right.
Now the examples that we can think of, one is
Right.
when Parshuram,
Mm-hmm.
he went around the world 21 times to annihilate the
Kshatriya
Kshatriyas.
lineage, right,
So
right.
the Kshatriya women
Mm-hmm.
were left with
No male to reproduce, right?
Yes.
Yeah, to carry
So
forward their lineage.
that's when they went, by the advice of the sages.
Right.
So these women went to learned ascetic brahmanas, and they could, consummate and get children. And these children were the heirs of the
Kshatriyas who had
Kshatriyas.
died. Yes.
Yes, who had lost their lives.
Right. So this is one way in which an entire community that was a victim of violence actually was able to perpetuate itself. And they were still Kshatriyas and they were not Brahmanas.
Yes.
And similarly, we can also look at right from the beginning of the Mahabharata, we
Yes.
can look at how Ambika and Ambalika were asked
And let us not forget the maid who
Yes.
was also serving them.
right, who reproduced with Vedavyasa upon Satyavati and Bhishma's instructions.
So this was again Satyavati being the head of the family,
Exactly.
sanctioned Niyoga,
Right.
and hence Pandu,
Dhritarashtra and Vidura. Right.
The other example that we can, it's very obvious. So
It's the Pandavas
Pandavas
themselves.
themselves.
So Pandu himself was a product of Niyoga and so were his children.
Yes.
Kunti, through
And-
Durvasa's, I don't know, could you call it the
boon
boon
or
or
bane.
bane, nobody knows.
Yes.
She received a mantra which could call upon the gods. Through Dharma she had Yudhishthira, through Vayu she had Bhima, and through Indra she had Arjuna.
Arjuna.
And then what did she do?
And let us also look at, I mean, this is an aside, but still very valid. So, when Pandu insisted that Kunti should beget more children, so she actually refused.
Right.
Now, during the ethical mores of those times, it was considered even through Niyoga that if a woman had more than 3 children, she would be typecast as
A loose woman.
a loose woman or a characterless woman.
Right, questionable, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is when she advised that why doesn't Madri make use of the same mantras and beget children.
Right, and through the Ashwin twins, Madri begot Sahadeva and Nakula. And as you
So
know,
all
the
this
five
was
partners came.
Niyoga.
Yeah.
So now, Nisha, I have always been thinking, now we are looking at the ancient practices.
Right.
If you look at the parallels in the current day and age, especially the medical practices that we are aware of, so can we look at certain,
Something that resembles Niyoga?
Yes.
Right. I think Niyoga for me, if I just think about it in modern parlance, it reminds me of sperm donation.
Sperm donation,
Right,
absolutely. I
right.
agree with
And
you.
although people don't actually reproduce biologically through sperm
True.
donation, and you actually donate the sperm as a man, and then it goes into a sperm
Yes.
bank, and then the prospective parents come in and then they make a decision.
Yes.
But this typically kind of
It is
yes,
like sperm donation, and so at the end of the day, you have your child, which is what matters here.
Right, and even in modern sperm donation processes, the once the sperm is donated, it does not belong to the person whose sperm it was. So
Yes,
the child
it
is
belongs to the parents,
parents,
who
yes.
have opted for the baby
right.
to be produced this way.
Right.
So coming into being can be a little difficult in terms of some parents may not be in a position to fertilize and retain the embryo in their womb, and that is when assisted reproductive techniques play a very big role. And one of the ways in which one can have a baby is through the IVF procedure.
Right. In vitro fertilization.
Yes. So the in vitro fertilization is a procedure wherein the egg from the mother is taken and the sperm from the father is introduced in the laboratory outside the human body, and after a few days it is reintroduced into the womb of the mother. And can we think of examples for, something similar to in vitro fertilization?
Right. Surprisingly, there is an example in the Mahabharata that is very similar to IVF. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same because obviously medical technologies have changed and evolved over time, so we
Yes.
can't have it exactly the same. But we have the story of Kadru and Vinata, the two wives of Kashyapa. They are two sisters.
Okay.
In fact, this happens much earlier, many eons earlier before the Mahabharata. Kadru and Vinata are two sisters, and both of them are Kashyapa's wives. Now, Kashyapa has many wives, and Kadru and Vinata happen to be two of them.
Arvi is the Naga something related?
Yes, you're right. You're on the right track.
Okay.
So Kadru
Yeah.
is known as the mother of the Nagas, and Vinata is known as the mother of Aruna and Garuda.
Mhm.
Now, prior to them getting pregnant, both of the sisters they had a competitive streak, and
okay.
they both wanted to get pregnant because the other one wanted to get pregnant, and so they
Okay.
begged their husband Kashyapa, "We want children. Can you give us children?"
Hmm.
So Kashyapa gives them a choice. Okay, you tell me what kind of children you want.
Okay.
Kadru says, I want 1000 sons who are flaming in their energy, and I want
Oh.
them to be born right away, very quickly.
Okay.
And Vinata says, I just want 2 sons who will be stronger than Kadru's sons.
Oh,
And
okay.
I don't mind waiting if if they take time to be born.
Okay.
So Kashyapa extracts 1000 eggs from Kadru and 2 eggs from Vinata, and then he introduces his sperms into them, and then he tells their mates to place these eggs in steaming hot vessels and cover them and wait for the eggs to get fertilized. Now interestingly, in IVF, the egg and the sperm are introduced in a petri dish, and the temperature that is used to help the egg get fertilized is typically, I believe, 37 degrees Celsius,
which is very close to the human body temperature.
Exactly. So, so this, up until this point at least, this entire process is very, very similar to
in vitro fertilization.
Right. Now, of course, we have to remember that the Nagas were born from Kadru, again, snakes are born from eggs, and they are not mammals. Similarly, Aruna and Garuda is a bird, of course, and so in the again, once again, the eggs, so they don't follow a mammalian reproductive cycle. So at least till this point, we can see that it's very, very similar to the IVF.
Very true. I can get the point.
Right.
Yes.
Now, speaking of assisted reproductive technologies, we also have another one which is surrogacy, right?
Surrogacy, yes. Surrogacy is a procedure or a practice wherein if a mother is unable to hold the embryo in her womb for whatever reason, so they opt the services of another woman who may be willing to carry the child up to term and give birth. Now, surrogacy is possible if it's more or less IVF, but an extension, I should say. Because you are taking the egg from the mother, the sperm from the father, fertilizing it outside the body, and then you are introducing this fertilized egg into the womb of another woman. Now, this again, let us also remember that it doesn't have to be the egg of the mother and the sperm of the father alone. It can be from a donor, so it could be a donor egg, donor sperm, so or it could also be the egg of the surrogate mother. Now, these are all possibilities in the current times, and it is also legally, is it sanctioned? There has been some debate about it.
Right. There are some ethical debates because certain countries, certain markets, women, especially from poorer communities, are forced into surrogacy because that is one way for their families to make money.
Yes.
So the
But
issue
again, the
of
question
consent,
is about more than consent. I mean, this is my take on this, that the attachments that a woman can form, having carried the baby in the womb for 9 long months, and then having to give away your, at least what you perceive as a part of yourself, is something that can be traumatizing.
True.
Now, at the same time, the parents who have been waiting for this baby to be born, and they are willing to go to any lengths to get their baby. This again can lead to a conflict of interest, and that is where some of the countries I don't think is legal.
I honestly, I'm not very sure about the legalities because I think we'll have to do a lot more research on that.
Yes.
But I do know for a fact that in some countries such as the America, that is the US specifically, a lot of women, they do choose to make the generous offer of becoming surrogates because you can give a couple that wants a child the child of their dreams, and also you can help yourself get ahead and get access to education, get access to medical care, housing. So again, it's a very ethically grey area.
It is a grey area, and then it requires, there is a lot that you can debate about.
In our Itihasa, surrogacy has led to some really fulfilling, parental relationships in the form of, for example, Devaki and Vasudeva's biological son is Balarama. But in order to save him from Kamsa, the egg, that is an embryo, is magically transplanted into Rohini's womb. And Rohini is Vasudeva's second wife. And so Rohini becomes the surrogate mother and the birth mother for Balarama.
Yes.
So I think that is story to explain surrogacy.
Very, very true, very true. So, Nisha, we spoke about the coming into being of the Pandavas, but we haven't still spoken about the Kauravas coming into being.
Right, and the Kauravas' birth is a very interesting story, not just in the Mahabharata but medically speaking as well,
Yes.
because it is very similar to a new developmental reproductive medical procedure called ectogenesis.
True.
Now, ectogenesis is basically where an embryo is taken out, that is a fertilized embryo is taken out of the womb and is gestated in an artificial womb,
Creating the natural environment.
or natural uterine environment, and it is the baby is brought to term in that external womb, also called as a biobag. And this is very interesting because first of all, like I said, it's a developmental procedure, so which
Yes.
means that the research is still going on into it, and as with any developing medical practice, it has a
There
lot of
can be
ethical
legal
and
and ethical,
moral concerns, legal
dilemma.
issues, yes. And it's not been tested or tried on humans.
Yes.
So, but it's very interesting to note that this particular practice of gestating an embryo outside of the womb by creating artificial womb-like environment
Correct,
is something
correct,
that we
correct.
see in the Mahabharata.
Yes, and the best example is that of the birth of the Kauravas. So Gandhari, let us go back to our story here. So Gandhari was given the boon that she will be the mother of 100 valiant sons by, again,
Vedavyasa.
none other than Vedavyas.
Right.
So when she became pregnant, so she was pregnant for more than 2 years, and by then, let us also deviate a little here, that Yudhishthira was born to Kunti.
Mm.
So Gandhari was worried that there's already an heir to Pandu, but Dhritarashtra has still not got his son. And for 2 years, if she does not deliver her baby, obviously any mother would be worried. So Gandhari was so worried that she started hitting herself, her womb, with
an iron rod,
Yeah.
a steel or iron rod.
and
Yeah.
so she wanted to cause an abortion. And in that process, so she delivered an iron mass, and that was like shocking for her.
Right.
And that's when
Vedavyasa
comes,
Yes.
and he tells her, I would never utter even a single sentence in joke. So as a joke also, I wouldn't say that this will happen. So my words mean what they meant. So you are going to have 100 sons.
And he advises her to cut that ball, that mass that she produced into 100 parts, put them into vessels that were kept at a cold temperature.
And also remember that the mass was sprinkled with water to soften it,
Right.
and then broken down into 100 pieces,
Right.
and then also place them in 100 vessels filled with ghee, and ghee is clarified butter.
Yes.
So the pieces of that mass that she had delivered were placed, and then they were taken care of in a secluded place.
location. Right.
And that's how the Kauravas came into being.
Right, and this is a very interesting example of ectogenesis,
Yes, it
because
is.
the embryo from her womb was brought out, and then that was gestated and brought to term in an external uterine-like
True.
environment. And so we see such and it's very interesting that we're still in a developmental stage, but our ancient people
And they had
the
thought
creativity.
about, I mean, whether Mahabharata was orally told or written, this is something that was imagined to be
In thousands of years ago.
5,000 years ago.
Right, so they were envisioning the possibilities of reproductive science at such an early age.
Yes, and really fascinating.
So Amma, it is so far we've been looking at reproductive technologies and processes that typically cater to cishet couples. That is,
Yes.
a man who is born and identifies as a man, and a woman who is born and identifies as a woman.
So there are instances of transgender pregnancies.
Right.
And,
And interestingly, one thing to note is that transgender pregnancies can be successful and can be medically and biologically a success,
Yes.
as long as the trans person has not started their hormone replacement therapy or has not undergone surgery.
And I can think of something that I read in the newspaper in the recent times.
Mhm.
So this is medically possible.
You're right. So the example that we want to give you here is that of Aruna's transformation into Aruni. So Aruna is, as you know, the god of dawn, and he precedes Surya in the morning when the sun rises.
Right.
Now, one day Indra had called the most beautiful apsaras into his sabha, and he had given an instruction that no male can enter the sabha. But Aruna is extremely curious because he wants to see these beautiful women and he wants to see them dancing and singing. So he transforms himself into a woman called Aruni and he sneaks into the sabha. And when Indra sees Aruni, he is captivated by her beauty and he falls in love with Aruni.
As usual.
And as we know Indra's track record, Indra doesn't really care about consent and he goes
Yes.
and assaults Aruni and impregnates Aruni. And Aruni gives birth to a son named Vali.
Now,
Now,
Vali is the king of the
Kishkinda, the
Yes.
king of the monkeys, right?
Yes.
In the Ramayana.
Yes.
Now, because all this has happened, Aruni is, or Aruna, I would say, is late to work. And when Aruni transforms back into Aruna and goes to meet Surya, Surya is extremely angry. And he demands to know why Aruna did not come to work on time. So Aruna tells him that this is exactly what happened, and Surya
this is where
Yeah.
Surya wants to see the form that Aruna had taken
Right.
to become Aruni.
Right.
And when he looks at Aruni, Surya is enamored by
Right.
Aruni's beauty.
And once again, he too assaults Aruni, and Aruni becomes pregnant and gives birth to Sugriva.
So Sugriva and Vali are brothers from the same mother. That is Aruni.
Correct. And they, as you know, in the Ramayana, they have a very contentious relationship in the Ramayana. And in
And the story is Vali is killed by
Yes. by Rama,
Rama
yes,
in Ramayana,
right.
and Sugriva becomes victorious.
Correct.
Now this reminds me, if you look at the parallels from Ramayana and Mahabharata, so Surya is the father of Sugriva,
Mhm.
and Indra is the father of Vali.
Mhm.
That is from the Ramayana story.
Correct.
From Mahabharata story, the same two gods, that is Surya is the father of Karna and
Indra.
is the father of Arjuna.
Yes.
Now it is kind of, it is just an
Interesting tidbit, you know. Yeah.
So if you look at the balancing act that has been brought about by the the writers of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. So in Ramayana, the son of Indra loses or dies,
Yes.
and the son of Surya
Yes.
becomes victorious. That
Correct.
is, Sugriva is very much the king after the Ramayana war gets over. Now, if you look at the Mahabharata, the son of Surya, that is Karna, dies, whereas the son of Indra survives
Yes.
and is victorious.
And it's so beautiful. You can see that mirroring
Yes.
where it is that really contentious relationship between two siblings, and where one sibling destroys the other.
Yes.
So it's a very beautiful and loaded and meaningful
Yes,
story.
we can bring about the similarities and the differences in various ways,
Right.
and it's really fascinating.
Right, but this story of Aruni explains how transgender pregnancies and genderqueer pregnancies were very
Yes.
much acceptable, and the children out of those pregnancies were also legitimate children.
Yes.
And in fact, in a way, we can say that our ancients were a lot more forward thinking than we are today.
Absolutely. Having said that,
Mhm.
the next type of reproduction that we can think of
Is interspecific pregnancies. We're going to get into some wild things right now.
yes, and coming into being doesn't have to happen only between members of the same species.
Right.
It can be between two different species.
Right.
or two different kingdoms, we should say.
Yeah, that's
Is it
true.
not?
The animal kingdom, plant kingdom. This is, like I said, this takes us
Yes.
into some really wild, crazy, imaginative.
Yes. And the story that I can think of is the sage Uparichara.
Mhm.
So his semen is swallowed by an apsara.
Adrika, right?
By name Adrika.
Correct.
Who is in the form of a fish at that point in time. And when she swallows the seeds of the sage,
Mhm.
so she becomes pregnant, her eggs are fertilized, and she has two babies,
Right.
human babies.
Right.
Let us not forget that.
Yes, growing the fish womb.
In the womb of the fish.
Right.
And when a fisherman catches this particular fish,
Mhm.
so
And he cuts them open. There's a baby boy and a baby girl.
and
The baby boy is adopted by Uparichara, who is the king of Matsya.
yes, and the baby girl is given away in adoption.
To the
and
fisherman.
this baby girl is none other than Satyavati.
Right.
And the fisherman who has adopted this baby and raised her as his own gives her the name Matsya Gandha. That is, Matsya is fish and Gandha is smell.
Right.
So
And for those of you who know the story of Satyavati, in fact, Parashara, one of the ways in which one of the reasons, or rather, I'll say one of the arguments he uses in order to make her or force her to agree to sleep with him is that he will get rid of this fishy smell for her if she agrees to beget a child by him.
yes.
Right.
And
And another
very complicated.
Very, very
And
complicated.
very, I mean,
Yeah, we will come with another video addressing all of these issues.
Yeah, issues.
Because we have a lot of thoughts to share about
Yes.
this. Now, Amma, interesting, there's another interspecific pregnancy or rather a reproduction that does happen. Because I don't want to say this is a pregnancy,
yes,
technically.
yes, yes.
Which is the birth of the sage Kripa and his sister Kripi.
Yes.
Now, sage Sharadwat, also called Sharadwan, he will see an Apsara Janapati who's very beautiful, and he'll start ejaculating.
As usual.
Yeah. There's a lot of this that happens in the Mahabharata. So his semen falls into a clump of reeds. And the reeds produce the babies Kripa and Kripi. Now, as you know, Kripa was the teacher to the Kauravas and the
Pandavas.
Pandavas before Drona comes. And after Drona comes, he gives his sister Kripi in marriage.
In marriage to Drona.
Right. And the union of Drona and Kripi is Ashwatthama.
Yes.
So you can see that Kripa and Kripi too have an interspecific pregnancy, interkingdom pregnancy, like my mother said, between a human and a plant.
Yes. And these, the children who were born out of such unions were supposed to be great warriors, as we see in the stories of the Mahabharata.
Right.
And the other coming into being, the Genesis.
Right. Which I would say is I think this particular type of genesis is something that a lot of us are familiar with, but it's also very out there, which is something called parthenogenesis or virgin birth or asexual reproduction,
Yes.
where basically the egg does not need any fertilization by a sperm. The egg develops itself into another being of the same species. Now, typically this happens with the lizards. We see one particular species of lizards that do have parthenogenesis,
Yes.
where the
Yes.
mother gives birth to female offspring only without the fertilization by the sperm.
Yes.
And in mythology, Amma, we can see something similar happening with God Brahma. who's
Lord Brahma
yes,
is supposed to be,
Swayambhu, right?
Yes.
Self-creating.
and he does not have any origin.
Yes, he comes out of a golden egg, fully formed,
Yes.
and then begins creating other
Other life forms.
So this seems very, very similar to parthenogenesis.
Yes.
And it just blows my mind, Amma, that how our ancient people had the vocabulary to describe all of these
And
processes.
also the imagination
Yes.
to come up with such techniques, such ideas.
Right.
I mean,
It's fascinating.
Yes.
And speaking of fascinating stories, I want to touch upon one of the most controversial forms of, I would say, creating people, because I don't want to use the word reproduction or pregnancy,
Yes.
which is cloning.
cloning. Yes.
And,
Cloning, as all of us are aware, has been done in animals.
Mhm.
But human cloning has not been done not because they are not able to do it, but because of the ethical issues, the moral issues, the legal issues that are absolutely out there.
Right.
And-
Speaking of ethical and moral issues, in fact, we do have a story in Hindu mythology which shows us why cloning is bad and how cloning was dealt with in the
Yes.
ancient times. Ma, can you
Yes.
take us through that story?
You have Shumba and Nishumba who
Asuras,
are fighting,
yeah.
the Asuras or the demons. They are fighting with the gods, and they have a general by name Rakta Bijasura. So Rakta Bijasura, Rakta is blood and Bija is seed.
Yeah.
So Rakta Bijasura, so he would have gotten a boon again from the all-giving Lord Shiva,
Who is very generous,
who's
sometimes
very
too
benevolent.
generous.
And so, and it's also said that if you look at any of these asuras, they go to Lord Shiva, do their penance, and they acquire some boon because Lord Shiva is easily pleased.
I also want to kind of, as an aside, I want to add, is it possible that they go to Lord Shiva because Shiva is the only one amongst the Trinity and amongst the gods, pantheons in Hinduism, who is so accepting of people outside of the Varna system, outside
Yes.
of the Brahminical hegemonic system. And Shiva is, that's why he lives in the graveyard, Pishachas and Bhutas are his companions.
Absolutely.
Shiva is the most accepting and loving of all gods.
And there is no differentiation.
Yes.
And that is also it's also, I mean, if you look at the other side,
Mhm.
because of Shiva's portrayal,
Mhm.
so the devotees are also more comfortable with
Yes.
Lord Shiva's persona, and they want to be near him.
Right.
And so that is where, so let us come back to this.
Yeah,
Rakta
sorry, come back to
Bijasura. So this is where, so Rakta Bijasura gets his boon from Lord Shiva. So the boon is, if even a single drop of his blood falls on the ground, another Rakta Bijasura springs up from that drop of blood. So this is a boon, and this every time a clone of Rakta Bijasura comes up, so he is equally powerful as the original Rakta Bijasura. So
this is actually like cloning, right? And in fact, it's I would say supercharged cloning because the Rakta Bijasura doesn't come as a baby. Once the blood falls on the ground, a full-grown adult Rakta Bijasura comes.
that's right.
Right, and in order to stop this, the devas are so scared and they don't know what to do, and they approach Shakti.
Shakti is the mother energy,
Yes.
also called Kali,
Kali,
Chandi.
Durga,
Durga.
Chamundeshwari. They're all various manifestations of Shakti.
They're all various forms of Goddess Parvati, the consort of Lord Shiva.
So Kali comes to fight Rakta Bijasura, and in order to prevent the seeds or the blood falling on the ground, she extends her tongue out and she starts drinking the blood of Rakta Bijasura.
So-
and she slowly drains him
And
of blood
obviously,
completely.
once he starts bleeding, he can't survive forever.
Right.
And Goddess Kali drinks up all the blood.
Right.
And so when that drop of blood is falling on her tongue,
Right.
she swallows him up.
Yes, so
So-
she doesn't let Rakta Bijasura clone himself anymore and
Yes.
thereby saves the world. Now, this is just a simple example of how our ancients also thought of
Yes.
cloning and the ethical and,
the
moral repercussions of the same.
repercussions. And there's a lot to be said and discussed.
Right. In the next video, we will talk a bit about
The legal heirs, and we will also look at who is an acceptable heir and who is not.
right according to those ancient times, because
Yes.
of course the
And we can
society
certainly
is
draw
evolved.
parallels to the current day as well. So on this note,
Thank you so much for watching this long,
and
now-
thanks for your support
Yeah.
and encouragement. Please do like,
And-
share,
and subscribe to our channel.
channel.
and
And
yeah, have a
for
wonderful
today,
day.
Yes.
Namaste.
Namaste.